The wind was the first thing I noticed after she drove away. Not the heat, not the silence. The wind, it dragged the sand in thin, restless lines across the road and pushed the black fabric of my funeral dress against my legs. I was still holding the program from my husband's service. His name was smudged where my thumb had been pressing too hard. "Dad's gone," she had said, not crying, not trembling. "Just finished. You should go too, leave everything to me." The shove wasn't violent enough to bruise, it was efficient. The car door slammed. The lock clicked. Then $50 struck my shoulder and fell into the dirt between us. For a moment, I simply watched the bill flutter against the road before the tires sprayed dust into my face and she was gone. The desert stretched in both directions, flat and indifferent. I didn't run after her. I didn't scream. There's something about betrayal that steals the theatrical parts of you. It leaves you practical. I reached into my coat pocket. The phone was warm from resting against my side all morning. Fully charged. Location services on. I had slipped it there before the funeral began, not because I expected this, but because I no longer expected clarity from my daughter. Grief had sharpened her in strange ways these past months. Or perhaps it had only stripped something away. I dialed the non-emergency number for the county sheriff's office. My voice sounded unlike my own, thin, steady, almost courteous. "My daughter has left me on County Route 14, I said. "I'm in a black dress. She may be driving a silver SUV. I believe she's emotionally distressed." I did not say she tried to discard me. While I waited, the wind kept moving. I thought about the hospital room 3 months earlier. My husband propped up on stiff pillows, his hands already losing weight but not strength. He had looked at me very carefully when he said, "You need protection." "I don't need protection from my own daughter," I told him. He didn't argue. He only asked for the attorney. The trust documents were finalized 2 weeks before he died. Structured disbursement, oversight, conditions. The house placed beyond immediate sale, accounts secured. Not punishment, stability, I hadn't told her. I wanted to believe she would grieve first and calculate later. A patrol vehicle appeared on the horizon sooner than I expected. The deputy who stepped out was middle-aged, sun-lined, professional without being cold. He took one look at me standing alone in black against the sand and removed his sunglasses. "Ma'am," I explained calmly. I didn't dramatize, I didn't accuse. I said she was overwhelmed, that emotions were high after the funeral, that she drove off in distress and left me without transport. He asked for her name. When he ran it through dispatch, something shifted. A report had already come in from a driver near the cemetery about reckless acceleration onto the highway. She was stopped about 8 miles down, he said. I felt something in my chest loosen, not relief. Recognition. They brought her back in the passenger seat of the patrol car. She wasn't handcuffed. But she wasn't driving either. When she stepped out and saw me standing beside the deputy, her anger looked smaller. Not gone, just contained by the presence of someone who wasn't family. "This is ridiculous," she said, arms folded tightly. "She's being dramatic." The deputy turned to me, not her. "Ma'am, do you wish to retrieve your vehicle?" The question was clear. The authority was visible, a line drawn in the sand that did not depend on our history. "Yes," I said. She stared at me as though I had betrayed her. "You're going to involve the police." I asked for assistance. I answered quietly. The deputy asked for proof of ownership. I reached into my bag this time and removed a folded copy of the vehicle registration. My name was listed first. Her face shifted. Then I pulled out something else. Not for the deputy, but because it felt dishonest not to let the moment be fully understood, a copy of the trust summary. "You should know," I said, meeting her eyes evenly, "that everything has already been structured legally." She blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means the house cannot be sold without oversight. It means funds are distributed through a trustee. It means there are requirements." Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. The deputy did not comment. He did not need to. Authority had already shifted. The car keys were handed to me, not her. "You're free to go, ma'am," he told me, not her. Me. I slid into the driver's seat. The leather was still warm from her hands. She stood a few feet away, arms wrapped around herself, the desert wind catching strands of her hair. For a moment, I considered lowering the window. Instead, I adjusted the mirror and drove. The house felt different that evening. Not emptier. Clearer. My phone filled with messages as the sun went down. First anger. "You blindsided me." Then accusation. "He wouldn't have done this without you." Then bargaining. "We can fix this. Just change it back." I did not respond immediately. The next morning, I called the attorney. We reviewed the documents again. I asked about adding a clause requiring financial counseling sessions before discretionary distributions increased. "That's reasonable," he said. I sat at the kitchen table where my husband used to read the paper. My hands were steady. I do not feel victorious. I feel altered. Losing a spouse hollows you in places you didn't know existed. Losing a child, even temporarily, carves differently. There is no applause for surviving either. 3 days later she came by. She didn't yell this time. She stood on the porch and asked, "Why would you think I'd do something like that?" I looked at her carefully. "Because you already did." She didn't cry. I didn't either. "I didn't want to lose everything," she said. "You were never losing everything," I replied. "You were losing control." The silence between us wasn't repaired. But it wasn't explosive either. "I'm not your enemy," I told her. "But I will not be disposable." That was the line. The desert had shown me something simple: survival does not need volume. It needs preparation. The car is in the garage now. The locks are changed, not to keep her out, but to ensure she knocks. Grief still wakes me in the early morning hours. I still reach across the bed and find only cool sheets. But when I sit at the kitchen table reviewing documents, speaking calmly with professionals, making decisions that affect the future, I do not feel abandoned. I feel steady. She thought the story ended in the desert. It didn't. It shifted.